Welcome back to another episode of Talking Points, and today, the review for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Now, first of all, apologies if I sound a little bit rough. We all had a pretty decent night last night for Tomo's stag. Unbelievable that he's even here, by the way. Didn't expect that one, but it definitely wasn't the most crazy race, let's be honest, as Baku goes. But how are you guys doing? Tomo first. How are you actually doing after last night?
I mean, yeah, it was one of them nights that when this morning, people are like, oh, so did you forget much of last night? And I was like, nah. And then I see all these pictures, all these videos, which will never see the light of day. You know what? Like,
subscribe to the Talking Points podcast membership.
maybe that's the only fans that people really want. No, it wasn't that saucy. Don't worry. But yeah, it was one of them where I forgot a lot. But everyone had a good time. You know, I bailed out pretty early doors. To be honest, I paced myself.
9 o'clock today.
9 o'clock.
12 hours sleep.
I know.
I don't think it was even 9.
I did. I slept for. Look, I'm almost 30, boys. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, this is just what happens when you get a bit older. But all in all, otherwise, I'm feeling all right. All things considered, I've got some pistachios and some lemonade, and I'm feeling good. But I don't know. How about you guys? Like, Hayden, you were all right. I saw you this morning. Matt, you. I mean, Matt's the. You know, you always take care of me. So I think you guys kept it pretty sensible.
Yeah, I was
Matt
all
spent
good
most
after
of the
I
night
got
undressing
sick
you
off
and
my
redressing
shoes. Yeah, cleaning all the.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. And after
EAT.
I cleaned the sick off my shoes, then I think we're all good.
Yeah.
I think once I had to help you into bed, probably night over for me, going full dad mode.
Thank you.
Literally. And to be honest, do you know what? As exciting as your stag was, it probably was a little bit more exciting than the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But nevertheless, let's get straight into it. To be honest, yeah, I mean, we've had so many bangers this season. It's kind of strange to, you know, rank where this race is. But at the front, it was kind of a race of... It was supposed to be that kind of Red Bull Ferrari showdown that never quite happened because the Ferraris just decided to basically explode within about 10 laps. I mean, Carlos Sainz out pretty much straight away. I think he had like a brake-by-wire issue. And then also Leclerc. I mean, again, the race was building and it just never happened because Leclerc just started to go pop as well. So, yeah, lots of issues for Ferrari, lots of concerns as well. Kind of, do you know what, more than the race, kind of horrible for the championship as well. Like, it was getting quite close a couple of races ago. You know, Max was kind of building momentum. And now it's kind of like almost Red Bull are running away with it. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, Tomo, what did you think at the moment that you saw? Because, I mean, especially, you know, with Sainz, we kind of saw that it was a break by wire. But when Leclerc's engine went, I mean, how did you feel? Because I was literally like, well, that's the end of the race.
Yeah, I think that's what Carlos thought it was, wasn't it? I think it was actually like some kind of hydraulic issue that he had in the end because the car, it sounded horrible. But I guess this is the problem when you've got a 2-team title fight. Because we don't have a Mercedes in there to also give us a fight at the front, or any other team for that matter. I think when it's just 2 teams, if Ferrari have a bad day, and I mean, it was strategy last weekend, and it was, you know, not just the Ferrari engines with problems either. You had Joe Guan Yu, he had to pull up. You had K-Mag as well. You know, there was the Ferrari reliability. It's funny how recently, because, you know, we're not that far into the season, weren't we? We were talking about kind of the Red Bull glass cannon. But it turns out that actually Ferrari, their problems were just waiting to come up, and it was a shame because with Sainz and particularly Leclerc out, it was going to be really interesting to see with Leclerc stopping early how that would have panned out. But unfortunately, we were kind of robbed of the opportunity to see it, which was a shame. Which I think is why the race didn't maybe live up to the hype, I guess.
What did you think, Matt, in terms of the strategy? Because even the funny part is actually right before Leclerc retired, there was a little bit of like, have Ferrari got it right? I mean, everyone's watching them now after Monaco in terms of like pitting under that VSC.
Yeah, it's definitely a gamble, and I think maybe because we had a few retirements, and it's all about the way the car positioning was. I thought the first VSC. I thought it was a bit of a gamble just to go kind of that early. I know a few other people did pit as well, which would have to really like stretch out their strategies. But yeah, it's a weird one. It got to the point towards the end of the race where we were kind of expecting, you know, the last remaining Ferrari engines to also blow up. But I think some of the strategies weren't really like correct here. I think some teams were hoping that there was going to be an actual safety car to help bunch up the order a bit more. But yeah, in terms of like the actual race itself, and we mean Ferrari, I mean like I think even going into like the first corner, like although technically like Leclerc locked up, I think Perez already had the corner and then sort of spooked Charles a little bit. But yeah, both. I think this is like where the top runners were doing well, but even then, it's like Sainz wasn't really matching the pace, unfortunately, in this one until he had this sort of retirement. So yeah, what did you think, Hayden?
I mean, same as you. We were literally talking at the time just before Sainz's engine went that he was kind of disappointing us so far this season. Never really in that fight, and then pulls over from the side. I think the strategy for Ferrari would have worked. Going early, they had the jump. You don't know what's going to happen throughout the rest of the race, and yeah, I mean the gaps were just massive. Looking at it right now, you've got 20 seconds between the top two, then another 20 seconds back to George, another 20 seconds back to Lewis, and then the rest of the drivers lapping up to 11th. And I think for the first time this season, this is the first time we've seen the new aero regs not work. I just feel like they didn't work today. Cars couldn't really follow, and at a track that's got the longest flat out section. I don't know whether it still has that, but it was always, hyped up as the track that had the longest flat out section. Barely any overtakes down in towards turn one. And that's, I say it all the time, that Baku is a rubbish track. And everyone's like, oh no, Baku's amazing. Baku's only good if there's a safety car. If there's no safety car, it's shite. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's one of them, because we didn't get the overtakes at the front, and I do think there were quite a few overtakes in the midfield that didn't get the coverage
maybe you can
they probably should have. But there was, I didn't think it was too bad. I think, when it's not front heavy overtakes, it's quite easy to miss them because as well, the coverage, I think there was loads of times where you could see these gaps at like 0.2, 0.3, and we're just watching, Lewis be 3 seconds behind Gasly. I was just like, well, why aren't you showing us this overtake that's literally about to happen?
But the gaps got to 0.2, 0.3, and then that was at the end of turn one, and then they just were never able to overtake. I mean, if you were stuck behind that Alpine was an absolute rocket down the straight. There was no chance to overtake that most of the time. But that's just how it looked. Like you could see on the timing screens, sometimes it would come down to that gap, but there wouldn't be an overtaking opportunity. There was a few in there, don't get me wrong, Vettel overtaking Ocon and going off and then coming back through the field and making a few overtakes, but out of 51 laps I can think of maybe 5 that were memorable. It just was not that great.
I think that's a bit harsh. I'm not gonna I feel like that's a bit actually harsh on Baku. I think it was purely because like we didn't really get a race up front. Like once the Ferraris were gone, like the Red Bulls were like messing about. Like midway through the race, Max was like, should I just go like a second quicker, like just for the bands? And literally his engineer's like, no, you know how to lose this race. Just like drive to this speed, get it to the end. Like, I mean, at one point they were like, don't even use DRS. And I think they actually, do you know what? The really big thing is that when we do lose the Ferraris, it is honestly just Red Bull domination because the gap between the two teams up top and the midfield teams, which we're going to put, Mercedes in that as well, it is huge. I mean, in qualifying, it's a second. It's still 1 second. And so over the course of a race, I mean, yeah, that's why we got like the 20, 40, that's why we got those gaps. So yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, I think the Red Bulls had it covered. But at the end of the day, I think Ferrari is going to take the headlines from this race and for all the wrong reasons. Like the weird thing is, I'm not sure if Max Verstappen's going to be remembered for this. It's all about just the Ferrari implosion at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I'd love to see the Italian newspaper headlines tomorrow because there's so much expectation. And, you do feel like Ferrari have the car and have the driver, particularly in Charles Leclerc, to win a world title. But, reliability is something that affects all teams to different extents. But they have produced a car, they've produced a chassis, they've produced an engine, which is quick enough to win races and to put Charles in the fight for this title. And if they don't win it, because this is an opportunity, let's be honest, with Mercedes not being up there, it's a 2-team championship at the moment. Obviously, we don't know how things are going to change, but 8 races in, it's just 2 teams fighting. This is, by the time, let's say next year, I know Mattia Binotto weirdly came out and said, oh, as long as we win races, I'm not quoting directly here, but it was along the lines of like, well, if you don't win a championship, whatever. I'm like, nah, this is Ferrari. This is
mate?
An institution. Like no title of any kind since 2008. So I just think all that expectation. I think the Tifosi, have deserved better for a long time, and I really hope because I've said this before. I want Charles to win a title. I think he deserves it. I think he's a fantastic driver, and it's just it would be a shame for Ferrari, maybe Ferrari through strategy and unreliability. If they let themselves down more than anyone else, I would be pretty upset, to be honest, because I don't know if they get another chance anytime soon.
I mean, Ferrari letting themselves down? Surely not. Surely not.
Never
Ferrari.
heard that before.
They always get it right, but
I think a lot of people are forgetting.
I mean,
sorry, I was going to say, I think a lot of people are forgetting that Max Verstappen also had those 2 DNFs already this season. They're even on DNFs.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you can maybe say that Charles Leclerc has missed out on most is the strategy call in Monaco, which in all fairness, the first one was his fault. It was his call to listen to the team and come into the pits. Carlos Sainz was the one who made the other decision to stay out. So, in terms of DNF,
I wouldn't say that's like
you can't blame Charles for listening to his team.
I'm not going fully against Charles Leclerc at that point. I'm saying, there was a different strategy call that he could have made. But if you're looking at going, oh yeah, Ferrari have ruined this for his championship, Max has also had 2 DNFs. They both had 2 DNFs this season.
Yeah.
So you still got to look at it side by side with that. You can't forget that.
Yeah, I think some circumstances are a bit different with that, and I think that's. I think we're in
some circumstances where points lost massively in the spin in Imola,
yeah, but also
that's the drive error at the end of the day, isn't it?
But then, I think we're getting to the point now where it's the reliability is the big question now with most of the teams. I mean, we're seeing it now with Alfa Romeo, where both Zhou and Bottas are performing really well, but the car literally is now just really unreliable. You can't tell if it's going to come up to a free practice session, if it's just going to conk out or not. And now we're having this with all the Ferrari engines, that everyone who was running a Ferrari engine had problems within their team. And this is the point now where we're still looking at the new regs of cars. Obviously, we're talking about Baku, of if the cars can follow or not. But also now we're getting to the point now where the engines have been running for so long, they're now starting to counter issues which they haven't really experienced before. And so now this is a real big issue, because it's obviously Ferrari is now struggling a bit as a team because the drivers are performing, or the driver is performing where they should be, but now the rest of the team isn't really following where they need to be now. But yeah, honestly, I don't think it's proper on par now of proper DNFs, because I think with Charles Leclerc in Monaco, he was just following what his team was saying, who have way more data. So I don't think the blame is really on him. So
no, that's not what I think as well.
Blames as a team though.
That's going to be the title. Hayden blames Leclerc for Monaco. Going to take your words massively out of context.
Leclerc is bottling this championship.
Sainz made a cracking call. Charles Leclerc also has a brain. Could have maybe fought a little bit harder.
I mean, that is true, but because I do think as well, I think the reason that it looks more promising, because you're right, yes, Red Bull, it's such a we're only 8 races in, and it feels like yesterday we were talking about Red Bull reliability issues, but obviously they have had most of theirs towards the start of the year, and more recently, in terms of from a mechanical point of view, they had their bloody rear wing jumping about all over the place in FP1, didn't they? But it's almost like I feel like Red Bull's issues in terms of reliability is perhaps obviously that fuel flow pickup thing at Bahrain, wasn't it? But then it's been they've had issues with DRS. It's almost like they're really pushing the boundaries of the regulations to maximise, which is why Red Bull were once again and have been fighting for race wins ever since Seb Vettel jumped into that car, and from 2010 onwards they've always been in a position to win races every single year for a reason, because I think they're just pushing the boundaries. But with Ferrari, when it comes to reliability of your power unit, it's just it would just be such a shame for it to come down to that, because I think there's a fantastic Leclerc Verstappen title fight, these two protagonists. Because as much as I've been, I'm very guilty of gassing up Sergio Perez, but I think this race Verstappen really showed he kind of put his foot down, because yes, Sergio outqualified him, but the gap between them two in the end of the race was about 20 seconds, wasn't it? So
yeah, and also, by the way, I just there's no talk of team orders here. Max just had the pace in the race over Sergio.
Yeah, Sergio admitted it as well, didn't he?
Do you know what the problem is? Also, is that it's kind of a weird thing that's going on in terms of Leclerc has been so amazing in qualifying. I've already lost count. How many poles has he had this season? What is it, 5 or something?
6?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I've literally lost count, and there's that crazy stat that now after this race, Max Verstappen has got more wins from Charles Leclerc pole positions than Charles Leclerc himself. Like,
Mad.
and I feel like that's reflecting badly because even from like a mental aspect, all of that is going on in the back of the minds of the drivers and Ferrari, and like they do not need this. Like that conversion rate from pole to win, it's just going to almost carry on throughout the seasons like a bit of a joke. So they really need to step up. And I mean, there's still plenty of races left. But yeah,
but this was the first race that like. Looking at the Delta, and I'm not sure whether this was because I think Sergio didn't actually get a proper tow for his quick lap in qualifying, but it looked like the Ferraris, they were quicker in all the corners than the Red Bull, but they were pretty much as fast down the straight. New rear wing maybe solved that to an extent, but this is why it looked like looking at practice, looking at qualifying, this looked like it was Ferrari's race all over, and just like it did in Monaco. And they come away with nil points, and now we've got George Russell only 17 points behind Charles Leclerc, which is mad.
Brilliant.
It is good mad.
I will say though, it's I mean, we'll see how. I don't think this season has actually started yet. I've got this really. I don't know about you guys, but I've got this weird feeling that yes, in terms of like we're seeing, Max dominate.
There's been like 8 races, hasn't there, Hayden? Or is Aldas just not been concentrating?
Just in terms of the championship narrative, like. This champion, I don't feel like there is still like a championship narrative this season. We don't have Leclerc versus Verstappen because they've each got like reliability issues. Last year we had right from the beginning of the season we knew it was a Lewis versus Max battle. This season it feels like obviously of course it started, but in terms of just like I don't know, I don't feel like it's as exciting even though both of the drivers and both of the teams are really close. It's just I don't know, maybe it's just a bit different from last year because we did see Max and Lewis every single race. It was like they were right next to each other, and this year it seems like. One day it's Red Bull having a good race, and then one day it's Ferrari having a bad race, and it still hasn't been as close as I kind of hope it to be, but maybe that's just like the new generation of cars, to be honest, and maybe it's just my expectations after 2021, I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think it's not been as close, whereas last year, like you say, it was like neck and neck. One would get the edge, then the other one, whereas this season we've sort of seen Leclerc go for it, and then Max come back, so maybe we'll see it more that way, that it's more clumps of races that drivers get the better of each other. But if you're saying the season hasn't started yet, then don't worry, Tomo. Albon still has a chance for the championship. It hasn't started yet, okay?
What do you mean he's still got a chance now? What are you talking about?
Yeah. What did you do at maths?
That
mate?
Williams update's coming, boys. That Williams update's coming, trust me.
It's taken a long old while, though.
Yeah, that's good things come to those who wait, Matthew.
Sandbags.
Now, another thing that I think is going to be talked about heavily after this race, because again, in terms of the racing, like we didn't get too much up front, but porpoising once again, and like the drivers, their safety is definitely something that's been talked about quite a lot, especially this weekend. I mean, it's obviously been talked about throughout the season, but yeah.
Let's all do it together, boys. Come on.
Yeah.
For any
this is
audio
like Lewis
listeners.
Hamilton.
For audio listeners, we are bouncing up and down in our seats. And that's it.
There you go.
No, but honestly, like even early on in practice, seeing Lewis Hamilton's onboard, it looked gnarly. It was unbelievable. Now, a lot of the drivers talked about it. Funnily enough, something that did come out after the race is that apparently 19 of the 20 drivers kind of all agreed that, porpoising is a massive issue. The FIA need to do something about it. The one driver that didn't apparently, Fernando Alonso. He's just built different, clearly.
Fragile masculinity.
L spine.
I think there's actually a fine line in terms of like I do think that's something maybe needs to be looked at in like the driver safety aspect, but it's weird because Red Bull have got it right. Ferrari have a quick car, but it's still porpoises, and it's Mercedes that kind of are trying to catch up, but they're porpoising to a degree that it's actually hurting the drivers, and I feel like there's a fine balance in terms of driver safety, but also not hurting a team like Red Bull who just got it right.
Yeah.
Like the rules were the same for everyone else, and they did not get it wrong. So how do you guys feel in terms of like what should the FIA do next? Like, should they now like do something about it?
I think there is a good discussion to like have it. I don't think the FIA can come in straight away and be like, right, we need to sort this straight away, sort of thing, because it's very much on the team of like, how close the car needs to be to the road, and if they want to go a bit lower, then you're going to cause more of that. So it is more on the teams to have that, and it's obviously it is a very new issue that we've had this season. Obviously, I think there's been cases of it before, but never to this extent. And even with like McLaren, where up until now they have a pretty nicely built car, and they started to encounter porpoising on this one. And I think with like Mercedes, you've got to remember they went for quite a out there design in terms of how they want the airflow to go over their car, and it's kind of like, well, this is something you should have expected when doing for a different design. Like other teams don't have it as bad, but we've got to remember Mercedes do have this weird bespoke side pod-esque design. And I know that's not the whole issue of it, but like I know Hamilton's pretty much, I think this is now the straw that's broke the camel's back, and Hamilton's going to basically say to the guys, this can't happen anymore. I don't care. Can't, yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know what upgrade they can change with it, but I just know this is going to be the last time that we're going to have to see it. Otherwise, yeah, whether that's, you know, having to go slower or take that hit in the race performance, like I don't know how badly it's affecting George. I know he's had some comments with it, but it seems it's mostly been with Hamilton's car. But yeah, as I said, like other teams like McLaren, who haven't had much porpoising issues before, here at Baku at least, it must have been obviously on the main straights, are really starting to encounter it badly. But Tomo, what do you think?
Look, it's such that there's so many factors into it, and you know you've got. I think we're going to see. I think the rest of the year there's only 2 more street circuits, Canada and one other. I can't remember which one. I think Singapore. That's it. Rest of the season is out and out tracks. And obviously, when you've got street circuits and you're not on the proper racing tarmac, I think we've seen it be more of an issue in terms of porpoising / bottoming out, whatever. I think that's been so. As the season goes on, I think we should see less of it inherently. But I do think there's a big conversation around, you know, who the liability is with, because, you know, I was reading an article earlier on Autosport saying that, you know, when in the run up to this season, there was a conversation, the FIA / Formula One were looking at implementing a minimum ride height, because they were obviously understanding these are ground effect cars, so they're going to be riding close to the ground. But if they ride too close, you know, they would have foreseen to an extent this issue, and the teams rejected. So and there wasn't enough backing. So in some ways you should say, well, you know, you've made the bed, now you've got to lie in it. But I don't actually believe that. I think, you know, okay, fine, they rejected it then, but this has been, you know, this race particularly, we saw like the state Lewis was in when he got out of that car, like, and I think that it sits with the teams completely. Like these rules, it's not like there's something in the regulations that fundamentally there's like a rule in that maybe gains performance but then hurts the drivers. Like you said already, like some cars have it to more of it, like every car has it to an extent, but some cars way more than others. But that's like the teams, like they are choosing to run the cars that low for performance, but they are choosing to compromise and make the drivers more uncomfortable. That's a choice the teams are deciding to make. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't, as much as I think there should be a conversation with the FIA, and because it's a safety related thing, I think the buck stops with the teams 100%, because it wouldn't be fair to punish the teams who have engineered. Like Alfa Romeo's car barely porpoises at all.
Exactly.
And so it's not like porpoising should be fundamental. Like they will dial it out eventually where it's barely a factor at all. And it's new regulations, it's going to take time. But for me, the buck stops with the teams, Hayden. That's what I think, completely.
Definitely, fully agree with you. I'm wearing the Merc shirt today, but, you know, Mercedes are the ones who would benefit massively if they wanted to bring a rule in to change that. That's why they're asking for that so much, because their car is the worst at porpoising. So they want a rule to come in so that everybody else is slowed down by this rule coming in, so that when they have to do it, it's not as bad for them. And
which I don't blame them for doing, by the way.
I don't blame them for doing.
Of course they're going to try it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, it's sport. Everyone's always going to try little bits. You know, if somebody nudges you out on track, you're going to try and report them because you want to try and see if they can get a penalty. Even if you think, if it was the other way, I wouldn't expect to get a penalty for that. But you'd always ask. You'd always try and see if maybe someone would make a mistake or something like that. So, yeah, they're definitely going to ask for it. But you know, it's up to them. They can ride the car higher to make it easier, but they don't want to because they don't want to lose the time. So that's their fault for making a car that has to ride that low to get the speed, but experiences that porpoising.
Yeah, I'm still in two minds over this because it's completely on the teams. Again, there's nothing in the rules actually that makes the cars like porpoise.
Porpoising's not in the rules, and it doesn't do anyone any favors. So.
It's very benign and like
engineering challenge.
Yeah, I'm very like. I'm curious as to like when they were developing, you know, the base design for this new car. I'm so surprised. It must have come up surely when they were doing their testing on like wind tunnels or like, you know, the aerodynamics and stuff. I'm really surprised that this never really sort of came up. But I do think like if the FIA had to step in, I think it literally would just be like a minimum height, which would like sort of counteract all of that. But then obviously all the teams will then say, well, no, it's not. Our car doesn't do any porpoising whatsoever. So I feel like if the FIA had to step in for whatever reason, I think that would have more complications because some teams, as you said, like they've got it correct and have no porpoising, whereas Mercedes, because they've gone for a different design, it's kind of on them. So I think it is definitely more on the teams onto that.
And there's so much variability like throughout the grid. Like Ferrari actually porpoise quite a lot. Like they're really affected by it, but it's not affect. The thing is, it's at kind of a different speed compared to the Mercedes, and it doesn't affect their aerodynamics. Whilst with the Mercedes, it's completely like just completely screwing up their aero, even during braking as well. Like that's the really big thing. Like when you're trying to brake and the thing is bouncing, like that's really what's kind of causing the drivers a lot of issues as well. But Ferrari seemed to be able to kind of cope with it a little bit. We saw a lot of it in Australia, and then obviously the likes of the Red Bull team. I definitely think there's going to be a bit of a controversy. I definitely think there's going to be a controversy about this because I know the drivers are going to push back on it. There's just no way that they won't. And again, the likes of Red Bull are going to say, we didn't do anything wrong. Like, why should we have to raise the ride height of our cars when we have built it to the specification of the regulations and our drivers say it's fine? So, yeah, it seems like this has been kind of stirring throughout the season, but I do think that this is going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm looking for. Do you know what? I'm actually looking forward to seeing like kind of the pushback that the teams have. But
I don't know if you've noticed
again,
as well, that like with the Ferrari porpoising, it doesn't seem to be as like big of a jump as Mercedes. Mercedes, you can clearly see how big of it going up and down, whereas Ferrari's one, obviously it's still jumping up and down, but it's like I don't know if you guys have noticed it, there's like more micro jitters, especially when we've seen it on like the visor cam with like Leclerc or Sainz even, where it's like it's little bumps. So maybe that is like they have it, but they've dialed down the jumping up to be smaller down with the aero. But yeah, I've always noticed that like the Mercedes one, it seems way more violent than everyone else's.
I think they were saying like 6G at times, like that up and down motion. Like that's not, that's not going to do. I mean, they're talking about like,
Sounds
I
like
know
a
Toto
good
said
time.
he's a bit worried that if Lewis can't, well, it does sound like a good time, but not for Lewis Hamilton. They were saying like maybe he won't even be able to race in Canada because he's hurt himself that bad. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully he's all right. But yeah, I think for me, it's on the teams for sure.
Step up, Stoffel Van
yeah,
Dorn.
there we go, mate. He's fighting for it, mate. He's fighting for a bigger championship, Formula E. That's what he's doing. So he's fine. Big up Stoffel. But yeah, again, I think this is going to rage on throughout the season. It was kind of like the biggest talking point from Baku. But I think I'm going to move on actually to the head-to-heads now because again, the race wasn't kind of it. The fight up front wasn't quite what we hoped it was going to be, especially after the Ferraris went bang. So I do want to move to the head-to-heads because there is actually quite a bit to talk about in the midfield when we get to some of those teams. But
Sure.
Let's quickly start off with Red Bull because, again, no drama. They were messing about basically midway through the race, like with their pace. I think Max Verstappen has to take it. I think even after the race, I think it was Christian Horner that said that their setups were very different. Sergio Perez went more for like a quali setup because he wanted track position. Max went for more of a race setup, which was quite interesting, I thought. And yeah, Max just had the pace, so he's definitely got to take the dub for me.
Yeah, same.
Easy. That is, it has to be. I think that the discrepancy in race pace was clear for all to see, which was a shame because when Sergio jumped Charles at the start, I was like, "Go on, Sergio!" I was like, "Yes, I haven't jinxed it with my video," but he still got P2, so it's still a great result for Sergio, no question.
On the podium again, I suppose. For me, it's a tough one with Sergio because one week I love what he's doing, and another week it's like, we're back to where he was because he's 20 seconds of his teammate at the end of the day, and he was leading, and it's kind of a bit like Saudi Arabia where he was on pole, he was leading, then got jumped, and then nothing really happened after that. He wasn't able to get back into it, and looking like a similar sort of dynamic that we had with Lewis and Valtteri at Mercedes, where there were some races where Valtteri was able to beat Lewis in qualifying and then beat him in the races as well, but then there were others where Lewis would just said, "See you later, I'll see you in the team hospitality at the end," and just wave goodbye. So that's kind of how it's looking like Perez can fight, but maybe not all the time.
I do wonder how much of that gap was down to the set, because I didn't. That's the first I've heard that their setups were fundamentally different. So I wonder how much of that gap was set up and how much of that, because Sergio was super confident. Like he out-qualified Max for a reason, and he was really strong in practice. And yeah, maybe it was just a mistake on setup. Who knows? But
and also we've got to remember
Max did what he had to do.
Yeah, I had a good remember at the beginning of the race as well. Like Sergio did pull away quite a bit, especially after like the first lap. He was already like a second or so ahead. His first stint was pretty decent, and then started to go with it. It's just literally when I think after like the VSEs, that's when it sort of just started to go away from him. And then to be 20 seconds behind, or however long it was behind, it was a shame. So, but yeah, easy one for Max on this one.
The one thing I liked about that, what Tomo said, the mind of an F1 content creator, like going into a race, my last video, the driver better deliver because I've got that pressure on my back.
I am
No
that
pressure,
powerful.
Sergio.
I'm that benevolent.
Exactly. Yeah, you're lucky he did end up on the podium because otherwise that video would just be fraudulent.
Wouldn't have been popular.
But yeah, it's Ferrari. I mean, what can you say? Like, do you know what I found actually quite funny is that there was a little quote after the race. There was a little quote after the race of Carlos Sainz where he was like, "Yeah, I was about to push. Like, it was so frustrating. I was about to like unleash my pace." And I was like,
absolute
you're 6 seconds behind
bullshit.
when that happened. Like, chill out, mate.
Bullshit. Like,
but yeah, I mean, it's got to be Leclerc, but it's like, yeah, fair enough.
I think we're all.
He
I
made
think
it a little
we're
bit further. I guess.
I think we're all in agreement, aren't we, lads?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Leclerc. How big was the gap in qualifying between the two of them?
Like
Can't
5
actually
tenths,
I
remember.
think it was
I
like
think.
half a second, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
5
Let's
tenths.
have a look.
41.3 and a 41.8, so 5 tenths.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of time.
Not good enough.
And
That lap by Leclerc though was just
Sainz
nuts.
is gonna be
like, a shout out
taken out.
again.
So he's going to be taking out the championship. He's going to, I was just about to start winning races, but now I'm out the championship.
I'm no longer in the fastest
Mate,
car
George
now.
Russell's still ahead of him. George
Yeah, he
Russell is
is.
still ahead of
He
him.
is.
I'm holding on to that. I'm holding on to that. But yeah, Charles as
Kiss the
well.
Merc
Let's go to
badge.
Mercedes actually. I mean, Mercedes. I think it was actually a really good race by Lewis in terms of like making the comeback. But George Russell, he has these like honestly, his 2022 season is like qualifying well, not doing anything in the race, and then ending up with a really good result. Like he just doesn't do anything. Like, I don't think he overtook a single person, but he was there when it counted. Did it in qualifying. I think the team has said that they're experimenting with with their two cars. But yeah, Lewis had a good race, but I'm gonna go with George Russell on this one.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between George and Lewis is that George is able to qualify because I think Merc is just a little bit ahead of that midfield pack, just slightly, and you're able to see it when George pulls away. And I think because George qualifies ahead of them lot, he's able to pull away from them and get into that sort of no man's land area. But because Lewis, most of the time in qualifying, it's always been in that pack, so he just gets stuck there. And there's no chance for him to really unleash maybe what that car potentially has. I still think George is doing a better job with it this season. And, he's just been absolutely fantastic. It would be great to see if they can fix that car and get to a place where they can maybe fight up front. But yeah, George, easy.
Go on, Matt.
Anyone want to go?
Go on.
Yeah, it's George. It's simple as. I think this one's hook, line, sinker. There's not more really I can add. You've kind of said it all.
Well, so I do think that, like you said, the experimentation that has been, from what Mercedes have said, that's been primarily with Lewis's car in terms of putting extra sensors on the car, being, because I do think obviously this is, 8 races into a new regulation, which we're going to have these fundamentally same regulations for the next, to end of 2025. So I think that we don't know how much that is accounting for the gap, because there is clearly a gap at the minute in terms of qualifying head to head, in terms of race. Like, I think race performances, like, it's been pretty close. But like you say, Adas, I think the fact that George is able to just out qualify and just be those couple of positions up the road at the start is having a big effect, because then Lewis is more like Monaco's that prime example. Lewis gets stuck behind Fernando. George is running in clean air and can have his own race and another boring race where you don't see him on camera. That's fine. But yeah, I think we should, because I know a lot of people are taking, Lewis washed, taking this opportunity to like jump on him because George is doing a fantastic job. But at the end of the day, no, I think there's more context there to that. I don't think that's Mercedes just protecting Lewis. I do think that there is truth to that. But we can't say how much of a difference that's actually making. What we can say for sure is that George has been arguably driver of the season so far. He's just been so good. New team. Like, we know he's Mercedes Junior, so he's got experience in that team. But the way he's come in and just kind of hit the ground running, and again with a dodgy car, is literally doing exactly what Mercedes need to still keep them in some kind of potential, because it could take one upgrade and things could change. And as much as I don't think that's going to happen, He's keeping Mercedes in with a shot, a chance, an outside chance, maybe even P2 in the constructors if Ferrari keep fumbling.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's just the thing about Georgia. Actually, no, the thing about Mercedes. Sorry, but they're qualifying so bad that they're falling into that midfield, like Hayden said, and that's making there's so much like attention on their strategy now. But when you're in that midfield, it is so much more difficult to kind of have the perfect strategy. There's so many different elements.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
like, you have the likes of AlphaTauri doing, one stops, and like it's much more difficult to control when you have a quicker car and you're only racing with, say, a Red Bull or a Ferrari, up top. It's much kind of clearer to see the strategy, but in the midfield, there's so many unknowns, and it's so much easier to get caught out in safety cars and VSCs. And I think that's why we're seeing Lewis have like these comeback drives, because he's getting caught in that midfield exactly like he was in Baku. But yeah, I think the team is just kind of like that. The entire season now is just data. Another race for data collection, boys. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, because the problem is that they're still a second away. Like they're not 6 or 5 tenths away. They're a second away in quali. And that's where it's definitely hurting the most. But next up, let's talk about AlphaTauri. Now, it was looking like a very good race for a team that's been struggling for most of the year. And then Yuki Tsunoda, his wing. I mean, what happened there? The duct tape. He was having such a good race as well.
Absolutely loved it.
How did he not get a black flag, by the way? That was unbelievable.
Well, I guess in theory, because like the part didn't actually come off, and like if it looked structurally sound, then I think it's all good. I don't think it was technically duct. It was something. It looks like duct tape, but it just had like a reflective material on top. So I think it was sort of like almost like aluminium tape.
It's like because to make it like not melt and get as hot. I think that's why. I think it's like sort of more of a metal or metallic tape.
Absolutely. But like, yeah, they're both running so well. And like, yeah, I think Gasly started 6th and then was like running in 4th. And yeah, with Yuki's one, it was what I found really fascinating when he came in to come change the DRS issue. Basically, the front left jackman who got on the tyre, he was the one who then had to run around the back to then try and fix it. And I was just like, surely if you knew you were going to have to do that, have someone there on hand already.
Bit inefficient.
Yeah, totally. Like if you watch it back, it's a bit like, why is the front people having to do it on the back? I know you can only have a certain amount of people who actually can fix the car, but that just seemed like just a bit stupid, if anything. I know it's going to slow you up anyway. But even then, still, Yuki was like, as soon as he came back out, I can't remember who he was. I think it might have been Stroll, potentially.
It was Stroll, yeah. He was just ahead of Stroll.
And like he managed to keep position for that first bit. So yeah, I think for this one, I think I've got to give it to Gasly. Like I'm really like impressed with what the race he was doing today. Of like getting up to P4 and then all the issues and then what have you. But,
I definitely think it was his best quality of the year so far. I think in the race he didn't do really anything wrong. You got to think as well. Question maybe if they had pitted him on that safety car, he may have been able to salvage P4 maybe. I think there's a conversation there, but at the end of the day, I think it's an important result for Pierre. And I think Yuki was doing a cracking job. He made a really good move. I think it was turn 3. He made a really good move up the inside. Can't remember who it was on. And
it was Ocon.
Yeah, it might be because Ocon was holding people up for time, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and, I think that I think that team's it's interesting because I think that team's like in a Yuki's delivering now. I think he's driving well. I think Pierre's he's a bit of a slow start, but I think this is an important result for him. I would also give it to Pierre. Didn't put a foot wrong. Just a shame for Tsunoda because he deserved a couple of points today. I thought.
Yeah.
I'll go for Gasly, but don't
Who did you
sleep
go
on
with, Hayden?
Tsunoda. He's done a good job.
No,
today.
I agree. Good boy.
Yeah, I think Pierre Gasly as well, and especially after Monaco. I said in the Monaco podcast, like, I think he could have been right up there with the likes of Lando Norris. He got massively unlucky because of Yuki in qualifying, but yeah, this was a much needed race for AlphaTauri because that team, like, they're just such a strange team in that midfield. Like, I think they do have the potential to be up there, but every single race there's either like reliability issues, like driver issues, or like just little problems there and there. But yeah, definitely happy for Pierre because he was under a little bit of pressure with Yuki improving his results. Now, Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel ended up spinning and still came in sixth.
Easy. Mate, if he doesn't spin, he's driver of the day for me. If he doesn't have that, because there could have been, well, he says P5, there could have maybe even been a P4 on the table if he doesn't spin. Which, not only, to be fair, I know everyone like clowned on Aston Martin for their side pod design, but they've turned because it's only. This is what I mean about Williams. Like it's like 3 races ago, and they're like down with Williams, like the 2 trash teams at the end. And now, like, Seb on pace, great result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like me and Hayden were watching it for backseat driver and loved the overtake and they just went straight off. And I think it was a beautiful pirouette, like straight away, get the rear spinning.
Exquisite.
I think also because of the onboard camera, it almost looked like he clipped Yuki. He didn't. There was enough of a gap, but just because of the angle, it looks a bit sketch. And then ultimately,
sketchy.
like just due to his own pace, then I can't remember how many more laps it is in future, was then able to retake over going past Ocon. Maybe he just wasn't used to the straight line speed because he just couldn't get it stopped in time because he went past him fine and then he just like go too quick. But yeah, I think for this one, I got to give it to Vettel. Like such a great drive today, and I can't remember the reason why Stroll retired in the end. But yeah, unfortunately, it still wasn't.
I think they said they had some weird readings on the car, so they
did,
to box it. But yeah,
for this one, for me, is definitely going to go to Vettel. But Hayden, what about you?
I mean, it's an easy one for Vettel, you know. It's a cracking result.
He doesn't want to talk about it.
Stroll's,
Nothing at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those days
qualifying,
that you don't really want to talk about it just because it's one of those where your driver's just not had a good one, and you know, it's just one of those where you know Stroll for the past 2 races has just not been on it compared to Vettel, you know. But you know, I back my boy. He's going to have some races coming up where, you know, it's going to come back to him. Hopefully next time, you know, he goes to his home race for the first time since 2019, that he can maybe have a good result there. But for this one, Vettel was just absolutely fantastic.
I do actually want to get a word from you guys in terms of like, because the Aston Martin, I think, does seem to be improving a little bit.
For sure.
Seb, I think he was, after qualifying, he was quite happy in terms of like the balance of the car. So that was quite good. Obviously, he's really been able to turn up the performances. Is there any chance for them to kind of, obviously, Stroll does need to improve. There's no doubt about it. Maybe if there's any races without qualifying, that'd be great for him. But do you think there's any chance of that
sprint
team, like,
races
getting up to that midfield? Like, yeah, exactly. Sprint
I think they're
races,
there.
Just nothing but sprints.
I think
But
that.
could
I
they
think
get with up?
when you say midfield, I think definitely. Like, I think with the amount of, obviously that was a huge upgrade. That's kind of, you know, the decision to obviously go with 2 different paths. You got to wonder if they had gone with that path initially. And kept to it and not gone down the other path and then worked out, oh, actually, that was the wrong decision. You've got to wonder where they could have been with that as well. But yeah, I think they're there. And I do, you know, I've said this. I think if you give Vettel a car he's comfortable in, we can see a Seb close to his peak. And I think he's done a cracking job. I definitely think that car's easy got. Like, it's going to change so much. That's the thing. I think in another 5 races, I think that order of the midfield will be totally different to what it is now, and I think they could benefit from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to be
finally
seeing a lot of
learn
changes
how
with
to
cars
do
as
the aerodynamics from the Red Bull. They finally learned how to actually use it, so it's coming.
Exactly. It takes a few races to copy. I mean, they've got previous in this, but yeah, it looks like they've nailed that one on. But Alpine now. What a weird race for both of these drivers. Yet again, like the anchors are on one of their cars, just like holding everyone up. I don't know what it is with this team. Just like one driver has a great race and the other one just like holds everyone up. But that car down the straight,
Mad.
Oh my god, what is going on?
It was pulling away when the car.
I think Fernando said.
Yeah, so me and Hayden, me and Hayden caught it where if you were behind at 8/10 in the DRS zone behind the Alpine, literally by the turn 1, you're already a second and a half gone. It's mad how lightning quick it is. Like I think in the speed trap, I think it came second quickest. I think.
No, it was 1 and 2.
Not sure if
it was 1 and 2 by miles.
1 and 2, mad. But at least now we can actually see that like it's like the car is just built just for straight line speed, but for slow speed corners, it's just it will just hold everyone up. And the issue obviously with Baku going into sector 2, it's apart from turn 3, it's really hard to get past it, like with Monaco as well. But yeah, it just seems to be this natural trend now that everyone's just being held up by an Alpine or Ocon or whoever it might be. So it's but I think for this one, going to Alonso. But like the straight line speed, just insane. Like even like with DRS, like half a second behind them going into it, and it's still not enough. Insane.
Mad. I do think obviously Fernando finished behind Seb in the end. So it's one of them that, yes, they had this breakneck speed, but were they able to capitalise as much as maybe they should have? Because I think the Alpine is a car that we haven't seen the best out of so far this year. I think the car has been better than the results we've seen, mainly through Alonso's bad luck. I think that's probably been just behind, for me, that's been clearer than McLaren. as a car so far this year. There's not much in it, but I do think, it was a bit of a shame. It's 7 and 10. I think they could be pretty happy with. But I do think there's still more to come. And to be honest, as much as I've been impressed by Alonso, Ocon's disappointed me a little bit. I've got to be honest. So far this year, I think the performances have. I think Fernando's. I think the gulf between them was closer last year than what we've seen so far this year. I think Alonso's been more ahead. But I'm giving this one to Fernando as well, definitely.
Alonso's been more unlucky this season. Alonso's got the points, and that's what a lot of people throw it to. But if you look at, Australia and also Saudi Arabia, the performances were there from Alonso. And
easy.
Yeah, I think, again, one's in 7th, the other's in 10th. Both got point scoring finishes, so a good day for both drivers. But, if it's a head-to-head, you've got to choose one of them. It's Alonso.
Yeah, definitely Fernando for me as well. I think in terms of the car, what Fernando said is that they basically went all top speed. And the problem with that is they didn't have as much downforce through the corners. And it was actually hurting their tyre wear quite a lot, because when you don't have as much downforce through the corners, it actually works the tyres more.
That's a good point.
So that's what he was really struggling with, because he definitely should have finished ahead of Seb. He was up there. I think Seb pitted on lap 9 and made those tyres, I think, work all the way until the end.
Yeah.
So maybe a few drop points there, but I think both of the drivers, I think they're doing quite a good job kind of working together. But I didn't expect Ocon slander from Tomo on this podcast. But keep a watch out for that in future episodes.
I'm too real, boys. I'm too biased, apparently. I'm Alonso biased now. No. Maybe I set higher standards of him. I think he's a very good F1 driver. I think he's, like, considering his career, like, jumped in first year in that Force India, was right there with Sergio. I expect a lot from him, and he hasn't quite met those expectations so far this year. But you got this, Esteban.
Well, now next up, now this was controversial. This was probably like, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to say about this, because McLaren. Now, there was a lot going on. A W for Daniel Ricciardo, but it was very close towards the end. It got very spicy at the beginning with some team orders. Obviously, Daniel was starting on the alternate strategy on the hard tyre, going long. He was held back. He did look like he had a little bit more pace than Lando Norris at the beginning. And then at the end, it seemed like there was some team orders that Lando maybe wasn't following. Maybe he wasn't happy too much over the team radio. Now, obviously, I am going to give it to Daniel Ricciardo. I feel like this was a really strong weekend actually by him, in terms of, like, he just qualified behind Lando, but in the race, he definitely seemed to have the pace, especially on the hard tyre. But what's going on? What are you guys feeling about the dynamic of that team? Because the vibes are off for me. The team radio between the team, like the way they're working together, it's like one time they are working together because of the strategy. The next, it's like, no, we're racing. I want to get ahead of him, even though there's nothing to gain for the team. Like, Tomo, what did you think about that whole, like, McLaren situation at the moment?
I think it's one of them. They almost had to call a safety car at one point because Lando was crying so much about being behind Daniel. I don't blame Lando. Obviously, like, he wants to be ahead. He wants, like, if he thinks he's quicker, blah, blah, blah. I think, obviously, the fact that McLaren didn't let Lando through when he was quicker on the hard tyre, which was the better tyre, seemingly over the course of the weekend. I think the fact that they allowed Daniel to, because obviously Lando's like, I could have got past Daniel, and maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. But I think that I know I've seen a lot of people having a pop at Lando because they think he was better. I'm just like, well, of course he's going to try and maximise his potential, and if he thinks, whether he thinks he's going to get past Alonso, whether he actually was or not, I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have caught Alonso personally, but who knows? I just think, the way that the team kind of managed it, because when they said to Lando, like, oh, we'll give you this option to, like, oh, if you can get past, if you can catch Daniel and get past, I don't know. I just think the way that they orchestrated and communicated with the drivers probably wasn't the best. But at the end of the day, I'm just very, very happy for Daniel because I think he needed this weekend. There's been a lot of scrutiny, a lot of pressure from everyone, ourselves included. And I think that, he does need to step up. He fully acknowledges that. I think everyone acknowledges that. Because we know how good he is. Like, he said that himself. He said, like, the pressure's here because people know how good I am. And that's fair to say, because we wouldn't be talking about it if he was just, another driver being beaten by his teammate necessarily. So I think, he's shown a lot. I think pace-wise, there was, 2/10 between him in quali, which is around a track as long as Baku's, not terrible. and I think that in the race their pace was pretty identical.
Yeah.
I think obviously Daniel was slower because he couldn't get past Lando. It wasn't allowed past Lando, but then he benefited by pitting under safety car. So I think their pace was pretty much the same. But I'm going to give it to Daniel as well because I'm happy for him, and I just think McLaren need to just tighten up the communication, and because it did feel a bit cringe at times, I think, on the radio. But Matt, go on. You have your day.
Yeah, basically. Well,
Go off.
Well, I think the first and foremost, like, he solidified for everyone that he's staying with McLaren. We found out that basically in the contract, his terms was he was the deciding factor if he was going to stay or not McLaren. And he said he likes having his back to the wall. He likes having the pressure, and he wants to make this relationship work. Like, he doesn't want to keep jumping ship to everywhere, because then you're just not going to improve yourself as a driver or a car. So I think coming into this race, he did need to, like, sort of properly start working with the team. And I think the team are genuinely trying to help him out with that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I will say as well, in the race, everyone kind of does like forget, like, Lando was ahead in qualifying. He started ahead and he was behind Alonso. And if he felt like he had the pace in it, they both started on the same tyre. So, like, he had the opportunity to pass Alonso originally in the race, and he couldn't. But Daniel, who was on the harder tyre, which seemed to suit him a lot better than the mediums, which I think is also like a string of a narrative string coming through the whole of this season, that, like, the hard tyres seem to be better than the mediums because they just seem to have more grip. But, like, yeah, Daniel had more pace because he was on the hard tyre, was told he wasn't allowed to pass when, Lando couldn't pass Alonso. And then, he pitted when we had the VSC, and Daniel got ahead with the overcut. Now, like, the whole sort of team orders thing as well, we've got to also remember this isn't the first time when, like, Daniel's been told to hold position when Lando's been ahead when he's had technical issues. I believe that might be in Australia because the team just wanted a nice, thing. So Daniel, in terms of the team, has done the job right. He hasn't, like, gone angry or anything like that. He's played with the team's strengths. Whereas here, I felt like, obviously, Lando is always going to, like, or whomever it might be, wants to have the better position, even if it's your teammate. But I think here, I think it's where McLaren probably didn't communicate it in the right way when they're sort of saying to, like, Lando, like, oh yeah, we'll let him pass and, like, you'll get ahead. Whereas actually, when you've got, like, 2 laps to go, there is not real much point because you're just slowing up your own drivers when you're clearly not going to match that. So,
but
yeah,
what I don't like, I need to ask you boys because I feel like I misinterpreted. I think everyone's maybe misinterpreted what McLaren was saying, because wasn't it where Daniel was behind and they were like, no, we're not going to let you past Lando because we want Lando to be able to pit and come out ahead of Alonso. But obviously when he did pit, he was nowhere near Alonso. So I don't think that's what they actually meant by that message. But I don't know. Do you agree, Hayden?
Well, I think their one wasn't it from early in the race? Yeah, they said, like, that was why they were. We're going to hold rank now because Daniel had to hold rank earlier. That's pretty much the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I don't mind this little deal that goes on. I do it in my league races if I'm with a teammate as well. Like, if I feel like I'm quicker than them and can attack the drive behind, and they haven't been able to take him for, like, quite a few laps, we'll switch round. I'll go for it. If I don't get it, I give back that position. You've got to be respectful as a driver as well. You've got to have trust that your teammate is going to do that and give you back the position. But it's a good thing to work out. If you've done multiple laps and not been able to overtake a driver and your teammate's right behind and they feel like they're quicker, give them a go. If they get past him, great for the team. They've maximised. They've got some extra points. If they don't, you can just switch it back round. Everybody's still happy. I'm going to be the odd one out here and just go to Lando Norris on this one. It was very close between both drivers. Lando beat him in qualifying, but Ricciardo jumped him because he pitted on the virtual safety car.
He did.
That was the be end and end all of it. Like, he did. Like, at the end of the day, he did.
But then Daniel had more pace.
Lando pitted
and wasn't allowed past
earlier, had to come back through the field and overtake people. Daniel pitted under virtual safety car, came out just ahead of Lando.
I think it's close.
So
I think it's close enough.
Take a normal pit stop, he would have been quite a bit behind.
I think it's close enough for the room to be split.
I can understand why you're giving it to Daniel because, we give him a little clap.
Well, no.
But
no, sorry. No.
Lando was the better driver this weekend.
No.
He hasn't got time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, wait, sorry. So,
you're doing better.
So when Daniel has got more pace than Lando on the hard tyre, therefore You're saying like, just because he got the advantage, like it's not just that as well.
He did. You can't not say that he didn't get the advantage of pitting under.
But like we're also talking about like his pace during the race was on the same.
Yeah,
if not
that's why I
better
said.
than
That's why I
Lando.
said it's not.
And then all of a sudden,
it's not out and out Lando Norris. It's very close between the two of them. But the deciding factor for me was that he did gain because he pitted under virtual safety car. It's a fact.
I mean, I'll just kind of, just to add my little 2 cents to it, when you do go on the alternative strategy on the hard tyre, that is kind of your strategy to chase a safety car, especially when you have a track like Baku where there is a high chance of a safety car. So it was kind of his strategy to go long and hope for a VSC or something.
It doesn't mean you had a better performance if your strategy
for sure.
worked out.
I'm still going to go with Ricardo. I'm not saying it was I'm not saying it was like a massive gap, by the way, because
No, it's
I
neither
think
am
for
I,
me, like you said, to be fair, like you said with your league racing, in terms of like you have to have trust with your teammate. I think there is zero trust in that team, to be honest, between the two of them. Like Lando, basically, he's thinking like, I'm dominating Daniel at the moment. I do not want him to gain any momentum. I don't want him to sort anything out because I am the number one here. So he has got that championship mindset, the same way that Vettel had when he was at Red Bull, the same way that actually Hamilton had against Bottas many times. He's got that championship mindset where he's got that arrogant kind of feeling to like, I've always got to be the number one. I've always had to have the best strategy. It's not necessarily like a bad thing or it's not necessarily unnatural. Every single number one driver feels like they should have that right.
Yeah,
and that's why I think he's trying to get on top of Ricciardo mentally. Even at the end, there was nothing for the team to gain. They weren't going to catch Alonso. First of all, catching Alonso and overtaking him with that straight line speed are two different things. And he was still like putting fake little dive bombs, just putting the pressure on. And I think that's what's going on. I think it's a battle of egos. It's a battle of who controls the team. And I think Lando doesn't want Daniel to kind of get that momentum. So all I'm saying is that it's going to be very interesting how this plays out throughout the season because, it's just there's a very big power struggle in that team, and that's all I'll say. Let's leave the McLaren debacle for now because otherwise it's going to take up literally the rest of the podcast. Alfa Romeo. I mean, Guan Yu Zhou is never going to get any luck.
catch a break.
He's the unluckiest driver. Unbelievable.
is.
This was his best race, in my opinion. I'm actually going to go with the Guan Yu Zhou on this one.
Joey.
It was his best race.
Up the Joey.
Me too.
Yeah.
Up the Joey. It was his best race in all year in terms of pace and also relative to Bottas.
Yeah.
And did you hear his radio, by the way, when he was like, his engineer just calmly was like, yeah, listen, mate, we've got to retire the car. And he was like, are you joking me? Are you actually
Oh, man.
like, are you having a giggle?
Broke my heart.
So yeah, unlucky for Zhou, but yeah, not a great kind of weekend for Alfa Romeo. But I'm gonna give this one to Zhou. I'm sure the luck is coming. It's coming. I know it is.
I was happy. You know what? As much as Bottas finished P11. There was potentially a point in there for him. As much as it's his third. What is it? His third DNF in a row through factors completely outside of his control. But I'm still happy that we've actually seen him now because his delta to Bottas, particularly in qualifying, has been pretty huge. All season, like arguably the biggest. He just seems to like performance wise. This is one of the. He's done all right in races, but he hasn't really looked close to Valtteri. So I'm just really happy for him that he's been able to extract this level of performance. If he keeps this up over the rest of the season, then I think there's many more points on the table. So up the Joey, Zhou Guanyu, you are my choice.
Up the Joey. Yeah, I mean, fantastic weekend for him. It's just been a struggle, hasn't it, for him this season? Because I feel like as a rookie coming into it, he's done absolutely fantastic. Hasn't put a foot wrong. Had that one incident in the sprint rate with Gasly, which was more of a racing incident between the two of them. Every single qualifying, it's the gap has definitely been there to Bottas. But Bottas, we know how good he is. I think a lot of people forgot it whilst that Mercedes period, and now they're finally starting to remember it again. And Zhou then to beat him here and then be beating him in the race before that DNF happened. He was running in the points after qualifying. I think it was 14th. He was on the grid, or 14th on the grid. Yeah. So to do that, to get them back into the points, and was looking really good. And then obviously the DNF happened. He's going to get some luck. He's already got a point on the board so far this season. Already got a point over another rookie from last season who is not doing so well.
We'll get to him.
We'll get to him. Don't you worry. But yeah, Zhou, absolutely fantastic this weekend.
Yeah, I can't really add much more. Everything's kind of been said. He's having such a bad luck with the reliability of the car. I think the qualifying is just where he needs to just improve on a bit more. But like we've seen it though, like he doesn't always have the best qualifying, but then in the race he always does make the places up, and then being able to eventually get a single point into it. But like it's just the reliability. I'm sure at some point like the car will be fine. I just hope it's not the end of the season. But yeah, for this one, I've still got to go Rougeot with this one.
And just to add, actually, on top of everything, Alfa Romeo, bring back your livery.
Oh, that livery!
I was not a fan of the green.
God,
I wasn't feeling it, Alfa.
So much.
I love your livery. Guan Yu Zhou's helmet is amazing. I love that as well. But that livery with the green, I was not.
Literally
like,
went from the best livery on the grid to the worst livery.
Yeah, let's run that back in Canada.
But listen, we're talking about it, and that's marketing, boys. That's it works.
But
it did the job.
I'm not too sure if I missed something. Is there a particular reason why the livery was for Baku and not for Monza?
Yeah, so it's that they were advertising Alfa Romeo's hybrids, like new hybrid line, and I guess green because green washing.
Just seemed
but yeah, you would think
that would
think Italy.
Way
I
more
want to buy
sense,
it even less now.
Yeah. But now you've heard of it, and again we're talking about it. That's what they want marketing.
Other hybrid cars are available.
This podcast is coming to you by Alfa Romeo hybrid cars. Get yours using the link in the description.
Yes,
one day,
Alfa Romeo, send me that invoice ASAP. Now, we said we'd talk about him, and he didn't crash. Alert the media. He had a clean-ish weekend. He didn't crash. Mick Schumacher, even though he did qualify right at the back. Haas. I mean, what even happened to them? I feel like K-Mag was up there, but another Ferrari power unit issue. His car was also left rolling away. It was hilarious. I don't know if you guys saw, by the way.
Yeah, that was mad. That was
Is anyone going to come and help me here? Like, do you know what I mean?
No handbrake, apparently.
Yeah, no handbrake. But I'm still going to give it to K-Mag because, as much as it was a clean weekend by Schumacher, I mean, the pace was nowhere. But I think he needs that, by the way. Just like clean weekends, no crashes, just rebuild his confidence before maybe he can actually have a better.
I want Hayden to go first
towards the end of the season.
I can feel
just
some brutality
you had a clean
coming.
Weekend. I mean, right, okay, a little bit of context.
I'm not saying he's my driver, by the way, just to clarify.
Again, yeah, I know. We've already said it was Tomo Stag on Saturday. We didn't watch qualifying live. I haven't had a chance to catch up, so I don't know if there is a reason why Mick Schumacher was so far off the pace. I'm just putting it out there that he was 1.1 seconds off the pace of Magnussen. Whether there's an issue, someone will correct me in the comments, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But in the race, Magnussen was running just around the point. Like he was just outside.
I think he got to 11th, maybe even 10th at one point.
Yeah. He was in 10th. He got overtaken, I think, by Alonso, and then was running around like 11th position for a bit. Meanwhile,
and he made his way through the field as well, didn't he? Because he didn't have a good qualifying either.
Yeah, because he started P16, didn't
he? Meanwhile, his teammate is down just ahead of Nicholas Latifi, and he's, like 40 seconds off the place. Maybe even behind him. That's even worse.
Well, qualified,
I think he was in front.
Latifi had to stop go, didn't he? So
Latifi did have the stop go. But yeah, he was like 40 seconds off, and then Magnussen's running in the points. Like, what is going on? Like, how can you be that much off your teammate? Like, at least when Stroll's off his teammate, he's still in the fight with the back of the midfield. Like, come on. And I'd say that the Haas car is on a similar level to those Alfa Romeos and the Aston Martin. It switches and chops and changes between races, but Haas should be, because we're looking at where Magnussen's putting it. The only time that Schumacher's been close to being in the points was Bahrain. But where was Magnussen? Magnussen was P5.
Preach to the choir.
It was a Mazepin-esque performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're 8 races in now, and I think we all love Mick Schumacher, and I think it's partly because we all love Michael Schumacher and, the iconic stamp that he has on the sport, and we all want to see Mick do well. But right now, it's just looking like a Bruno Senna all over again.
Second season is the season where, like, Tsunoda's kicking on, So Tsunoda's made a clear step forward. I've said this a million times before. I think the fact that he didn't have an experienced teammate to learn from, the fact that he was running around at the back and had no real chances to, hone his will-to-will racecraft. Not that I'm saying that's a particular weakness at all, but, that rookie season, he didn't get anywhere near the value that Zhou Guanyu's getting from his rookie season. And the gulf was surprisingly large. I don't think there's been a huge amount. I don't think, like, in one lap pace, like in their qualifying gap before this race anyway, their average gap was no bigger than the average gap between like Hamilton and Russell and Alonso and Ocon. And it was kind of like, I think it's like 2.5, 3 tenths. But yeah, I mean, in the race, he was just nowhere. And yeah, I think the name probably gets him more concessions for sure. I think ultimately, you know, they're sports people. We can comment on their performances without it being personal. And I think that, you know, Mick's just, unfortunately, he's just not delivering so far in terms of either being in the car or being nowhere.
Like
still no points on the
still-
board. Like you
yeah,
say,
he's still the
Hayden, in
only
a really good
driver.
car.
Yeah, he's still the only driver alongside Nicholas Latifi and Nico Hulkenberg, who did 2 races who haven't
Hulkenberg.
scored any points.
And,
You know?
and the 4 of us. We haven't got any points.
And the 4 of
And
us.
the 4 of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got the same amount of points this season.
And we haven't done about $20 million worth of damage as well. So
I'm
we're winning.
I'm gonna just be really blunt. I'm bored of this narrative now with Mick. I'm not a fan of him. Like, people will say like, oh, he won an F2 championship. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm sorry, this is not F2. This is F1.
Oh
like,
my God.
Like, I honestly,
Matt
I'm
is
so
asking for
fire
fucking
extinguisher
bored.
out.
It's time to go.
But like it's just like you've had the time now. There's other F2 drivers who come in and show what they can do. It goes to show that Mazepin really was absolute dog shit. But then also Schumacher
To be honest.
wasn't even better and much better. Like, I'm so sorry, but like actually
I mean,
I'm not.
fair.
Like, Magnussen's come in from not being in the sport, has
Sat on
shown
his
him up,
sofa at home.
literally shown him up massively, and Mick Schumacher has had all the time to prep at the headquarters, had testing time, had a whole extra season, and this is what we get to show for it. And I'm you know what, I'm just so bored of it now. Like, he's just like Latifi, just I think it's done, honestly.
I do think Magnussen is underrated, though. I will say that. I do think Magnussen's a very, very good driver.
Yeah, but all drivers should
and
be
I think-
like that. Like, that's
Yeah,
how it should
and
be.
it's amplifying how bad it's looking for Mick because he's not doing the job. I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Absolutely, but yeah.
But there's
Yeah, I
a
feel
difference
like-
between the two, because you have a similar situation in Alfa Romeo between Zhou and Bottas, where the qualifying gap is huge, but Zhou is able to keep it on track and he's able to be in that fight. That's the difference there.
Exactly that. And also, like, we're not forgetting, like, Mick does have a mentor, which is Sebastian Vettel. Obviously, he's not going to give him all the data from, like, you know, as soon as you get out the car and have the workaround with it. But like, he has had someone.
Well, he crashed into his mentor in Miami.
Exactly that, yeah. Look what I can do.
Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. Right.
But like, he has had someone there to like help him out, especially, you know, just not even just like the car, but also
No,
like
you're right.
working.
You're
on-
right.
But it's obviously it's not going to be to the same extent of having someone actually in the team to share data with. Granted, but you can't give him too much slack. Like, if he had a completely different name, all of us would be saying, "Mate, get out the sport." Like, that's the only thing that I think is literally helping him stay in, unfortunately. But yeah, anyway, that's enough of it.
Name
2
drivers
videos
are the
ago,
new
I
pay
said that I-
drivers.
Exactly, yeah. Was it 2 videos ago I said that he's not going to be there next year, and I still stand by it. So, yeah, not looking good.
I still
Mick,
think he's
but-
got a chance to turn it. I think I'm probably the most positive out of the
course.
4 of us
But
about
like,
Mick
but
potentially
this shouldn't
turning it around.
be a hot take. This should be like, this is what we're all kind
Because
of
the qualifying
thinking.
gap, apart take away today, the qualifying gap's not been massive, but yeah, it's not been a good season. So.
Yeah. Now, last team on the grid, Williams. The first thing I've got to say, what was that team doing at the beginning? Like,
Oh
there's
my
not many times I will defend Nicholas Latifi, but what were they doing at the beginning? Like, what was that mechanic doing?
Love
like,
it.
touching that car.
I think they
after that
don't really
light
need
went
to
off?
care,
Like,
do they? They don't need to care. They just slap on it,
Yeah,
just
he's like,
go,
yeah, thumbs up,
oh
like,
crap,
good
we've
luck,
given,
Nicholas Latifi.
yeah, we've
Literally
given him a
just like-
10-second time penalty, but it's not going to really matter, is it? You know?
So my question
Oh, I
is,
love it.
did the mechanic have to do it to get Latifi in? Like, so was it like if the mechanic hadn't done it, Nicky would have got a
No,
penalty
it's
anyway?
formation lap. No,
So he
it's
just did it
formation
for
lap.
shits and gigs. It wasn't like a.
Yeah, he must have just forgotten, just been like, yeah, good luck, mate, slap on, and then because
He
he's
must
done
have
that,
felt.
Matt
poor
was saying
bloke,
like, yeah, but that's the thing. You're saying that he
Absolute
must have felt,
donut.
oh, what the fuck? But they probably all got back there and were going, don't worry, mate, because he's going to be last anyway.
It's not
so
worth
don't
it. It's
matter.
fine, yeah. We've already got his money.
It's
It's
like,
fine.
Good luck, Nicholas Latifi. Like, maybe you can get up to P18. Like, that'd be sick.
Well,
Bring
he
that
wasn't
P18
last
home,
in
mate.
qualifying, so you never know. Like maybe this was
Yeah,
his.
true,
Yeah, obviously we didn't get ready to. I guess we have to give it to Albon just because he got up to
Yeah, you're
P12,
gonna feel
so
that.
pretty close to the points. I mean, yeah. Not
Absolutely.
that, but to be fair,
No,
behind
it's an
Albon,
easy
it's Tsunoda whose rear wing broke, and then it's Schumacher and Latifi, and then it's all DNFs otherwise. So I don't think I just think that Williams is unfortunately quite clearly now the worst car now that the Aston Martin's improved.
I
Easy.
think Alex needs a new hair colour. You know, the red's worn off. We need to go for a brand new hair dye, and then the magic's going to come back. That's what we need.
The memes kind of died, innit?
Yeah, it's a little bit like
He just needs a different colour.
Just
What
match
colour?
the blue.
What you
Match
suggesting?
his helmet.
Let's go for blue. Match the car, you know. And then when that starts to wear off, we go for green, and then we just switch it about. He becomes the Dribble A C.
Yeah, just work our way through. Yeah, work our way through the rainbow. See where we get to until it runs out. Well, there you go. I mean, yeah, it's got to be Alex as well. I feel like it's just a bit of a non-race for Williams, and it just turned up basically. Because I was gonna say the names that Tomo was reading out, like he was, you know, Alex was ahead of the guy who had half a wing, ahead of the guy who luckily didn't crash, and everyone else had a DNF. So it was like, yeah, decent race, you know.
Is that Williams'
but yeah, I
tagline
think
at the
that
end of the
pretty much-
season? Just turns up.
Well,
Just
to be
turns up.
fair,
Just turns
though,
up.
that for Williams, they've either like this year they've either got to throw something mad with a strategy, which has worked for them like a couple of times, or just keep in the race, keep your nose clean, don't have any incidents, and keep up there. I mean, got P12 in the end. There were a lot of DNFs, but you know, you put yourself in that position. That's the thing. We're not seeing Latifi put himself in that position to inherit any good luck. We're not seeing him anywhere near, not even close. And that's why the gulf between the two, at least Alex is giving the team a chance to score points. But I think, again, with the Aston Martin improvement, Williams and now, they need a big update to save
And
their season.
also,
I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
Latifi's now got a penalty point for, you know, ignoring blue flags. Exact same as Albon.
True.
I think he ignored, it was like 12
How did he
blue,
not get one in
12 blue
Monaco?
flags. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure how that works out, but I think it's, I mean, I'm sure they've now tightened the rules since Monaco for that. But yes, he's now got a penalty point for ignoring.
Yeah, there was,
12.
we got away with it last time, so it's fine. To be fair, he was actually, I was quoted afterwards, he was saying that actually he was doing Gasly a favour because he wanted to give Gasly DRS.
Bullshit.
Look, to be fair, though, he did though. That did do Gasly a favour, not because if he'd have got out of the way, then Lewis would have gone straight past down the straight. But
Yeah, but
I
blue flags.
I mean, maybe
is
he's
still blue
just
flags.
saying
blue
that.
flags,
I don't
yeah.
know. I know. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying. I'm just making sure you know all the information, right?
Stop playing devil's advocate with literally every single driver. Like, actually, do you know what?
Why?
Maybe Carlos Sainz is the best driver on the grid. You know.
Mick Schumacher deserves to stay in the sport.
That's my next video. Done.
Right, that wraps up. Maybe not the best race of the season. It was an alright Grand Prix,
okay.
but
All right.
next time out we have Canada. Tom, are you doing anything? Much that weekend?
Okay. Yes, I'm going to be there. I've got a ticket to my
For the
email
Grand Prix, of course,
for the Grand Prix, and then I'm getting married. So you'll be seeing this finger will have
if you have time.
a band on it after a couple of days after. So yeah, I'll be there, hopefully to bring some good luck. So you won't be seeing me on Talking Points for a while now, because I'm away for Canada, I'm away for Silverstone, I think I'm away for Hungary, is it?
I think so, yeah.
I'm
I think
not sure.
you. I think I've got it written down somewhere
Put in the
that you
wife
get back in like
before
2
us.
days after, I think. But yeah.
Absolutely, boys. So yeah, I mean, so good luck without me. Okay, you're gonna need it. Yeah, I can't carry the podcast anymore. Sorry.
Oh, here we go. Right,
Is
It's
Minton
kicking off,
going to
hasn't it?
Canada? Because we can have
No.
Minton on instead.
Yeah, you could try to race.
I can put up one of your drunken photos and just have that here in place if you want.
Nah,
mate. Yeah,
nah.
I got it.
Yeah.
No, battery died.
Brilliant, right. Before it completely goes off the rails, that is the end of this podcast, our review of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, don't forget to give it a like and also subscribe to the F1 Talking Points channel, and we'll see you in the next one.